What's going on, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review Future's Dirty Sprite Mixtape. Now, this is the prequel to Future's breakout 2015 project, Dirty Sprite 2, which in a lot of ways, apart from like the Monster Mixtape, is kind of responsible for breaking Future really into like the sprawling kind of ubiquitous draw that he continued to have even to this day. And he continues to be one of the forces to be reckoned with in rap music, especially nowadays. But the concept behind it was back in 2011, he was kind of on the come up a little bit, and this is to me one of the mixtapes that kind of got him started. So Future didn't have a gigantic 2011, but he did have a pretty above modest 2011. He was on YC's Racks, which was a breakout hit in 2011, and then he had like a mixtape hit or like a kind of street single called Tony Montana that wound up being on his 2012 album a little bit later. But Dirty Sprite basically kind of has like a collection of hits that was just kind of an entry, kind of a kickoff point to show what Future would wind up being in his early days. And it's a pretty good steal if this sort of stuff is free. I would definitely have to say I'm liking the charm behind it. But the concept behind it kind of is it's not quite as mainstream as like some breakout mixtapes would kind of be. I don't feel like, I mean, maybe some folks would feel like this is Future's Trap or Die, but I kind of feel like it has some hits, but it doesn't quite have a single as large as Rax, or it doesn't quite have a single as large as Rax or Tony Montana or something like that. A lot of this is just kind of like basically just like in the trenches kind of mixtape stuff, not really quite sure if the blow up was going to happen quite yet or that type stuff, but it is quality. And I'll definitely say one of Future's greatest strengths on this project is just his sheer kind of unabashed penchant for strip club anthems and that type stuff, and decent club bops and that kind of situation. I mean, they may not be dance club ready, but they're definitely strip club and kind of nightclub ready, just that kind of nightlife type atmosphere. There's even a couple casino songs in there and carnival type songs. So I would definitely have to say it's got a pretty glitzy kind of lifestyle attached to it. But it's just too bad that there wasn't like, I mean, I really feel like this mixtape could have used a Future hit of its own, because Future does throw YC's Racks on here, but I definitely would have thought that there needed to be a hit from Future. There's a couple that I do feel like probably could have done it. Like he does a song with Travis Porter and he does another one with Twista that are really good. But that's about the only thing this project's really lacking. It's a pretty solid mixtape, kind of about the same quality as Monster. Good, but just kind of underneath the impression that it just doesn't have the massive kind of breakout hit like Meek Mill did with Dream Chasers and Rick Ross did with Rich Forever. But it had some pretty like sufficeable attempts. I just would have to say that. But the singles on this project, or at least the songs that got music videos to them, there are some quality producers on here. Like I know Nard and V from Migos Productions is kind of on here. I mean, he's not exclusive to Migos, but he's someone who's produced for Migos. Zaytoven is on here, and I think I've heard the name Sunny Digital before. And Mike Will made it. It has one beat on this project. So the single off of this project, or at least one of the music videos for this, was Dirty Sprite, the title track to the mixtape, and it's produced by Mike Will made it kind of before his breakout 2013 year. But I would definitely have to say this is a pretty like sloshed kind of beat. And I definitely would have to say this sounds like you're completely like your eyes are hazed out red, bloodshot red, kind of torched out, that type stuff, or just completely tossed off a Dirty Sprite like Future kind of is, which is the codeine and that type stuff. But it's kind of the concept. It's good to kind of see those kind of songs, because Future would later be known for his kind of immersive, kind of druggy, and kind of sprawling, like psychedelic type songs and that type of stuff. So it's definitely kind of good to get that atmosphere as far as just the entryway to say Future would become immersed with this style. But it's just, I mean, this one, I feel like the beat may get kind of grating in certain circumstances, but for the most part, depending upon how you listen to it and what kind of pitch of like sobriety you're in, and I mean by that I mean how fucked up you kind of are, I would definitely say that this is like a winning hit. It's just kind of an entry hit. It's not quite as big as Rax or like Tony Montana or like Parachute with R. Kelly or something like that, but I do feel like it has some quality towards it. Definitely like a bubbler, I would have to say. And then the other song that it appeared had a music video towards it on this project was Upper Echelon. And this one sounds very carnival like, very much something that you'd hear at like a casino, some sort of kind of type game, kind of parlor game type stuff that would kind of happen. This really reminds me of like a night kind of venue type stuff where you're going to be spending money, that type stuff. I mean, this is another one where I didn't quite really get enthralled by the beat. I mean, the problem that I have with Dirty Sprite is there's really not much on here that just completely knocks my socks off in terms of production, but there are some ones that are somewhat melodic. Beat upper ech I'd probably give this beat upper echelon like an 85%, something like that. It's just kind of not quite top of the list, something I would immediately download this mixtape for, but it is pretty solid. This kind of sounds really carnival like and kind of like casino like and that type of stuff. This would definitely have to say it's really short. I mean, Future just put a hook on there and one verse, and then that basically took care of it. And that's kind of the concept. But it's just a nice kind of like demo song type stuff. It's good, but it's just kind of I need to me it's basically an almost song because I would have to get used to it more to see if the song would grow on me. But I like it, but I'm not in love with the song. This is kind of the concept, but it is a decent little song. I just would have to give it an almost song at this particular stage. So out of 17 songs on here, there's 21 songs on the mixtape, three skits or like three interludes and stuff, and then there's also the song Racks that's on YC's breakout mixtape. So I don't really count that because that's more YC's song. But 17 songs, I wound up liking seven and a half. So I'll go ahead and list those seven and a half songs for you. So they would be Dirty Sprite, We Winnin', Watch This, Pop Them Bands, Old Hundreds, Splashin', I Got Yo Bitch, and the almost song is Upper Echelon. So depending upon how you feel about it, you can say that that's 8, but that's about 7 out of 17, 7.5 out of 17. So I'm going to talk about some of these. I feel like the biggest breakout hits that kind of stuck out with me the most and the ones that were most charming to me were Pop Them Bands with Travis Porter, and then Old Hundreds with Twista. I mean, Old Hundreds really felt like a strip club anthem, just kind of something to just go out and throw some racks, that type stuff. Really have some fun at a nightclub, just throwing money, that type stuff, getting drunk. And Pop Them Bands is another one that kind of does that also. But this one just sounds more club ready. This sounds like something that you would hear almost in a lighter sense, like something that kind of like Tayo Cruz would have done, at least in terms of the production and something like that, like a David Guetta, Flow Rida type beat almost. I mean, it kind of has that Atlanta tinge to it, but this is in the direction that's about as commercial as Future kind of gets on this project is Pop Them Bands. I think it's pretty like club ready, at least out of most of these. I mean, most of these kind of go for the pitch of like a strip club or a nightclub, something like that, where it's going to be like hardcore kind of stuff. But I did see the crossover and Pop Them Bands. Like We Winnin' has a pretty menacing beat, and it has a really solid hook on here. That definitely reminds me of something that Jeezy would do. Kind of reminded me of like Jeezy's Me Money from his 2004 mixtape, The Streets Are Watching, or Streets Is Watching. Uh, I also feel like Watch This with Rocco is a nice one. I mean, these just sound like interchangeable kind of trap beat, DJ Khaled type beat type stuff, or nightclub type venue type stuff. They're just really great. I Got Yo Bitch really has kind of like a woozy kind of beat on there. Yeah, I Got Yo Bitch is just kind of a woozy kind of taunting song, which kind of steps away from just like the nightclub and strip club type stuff. But that is a solid one that Future kind of did. And Splashin' kind of is another one that's very similar to Upper Echelon, where I almost made Splashin' like an almost song, but I do kind of feel like this the kind of beeps and bloops and that type of stuff and the chirps in the song, just I can definitely see it kind of being like, at least for a mixtape and free music, a pretty decent and solid romp as far as going out and just having some free music that's still enough to get turned up and spark a couple blunts too and that type of stuff. So it has like its charm towards it. Rax is another almost song. I forgot to talk about that. I mean, I don't want to quite say it's a full blown hit just because it's not really a Future song. I mean, soon enough, I'm going to review the YC project that this song is on, so I'm just going to store that for him. But I will say it's an almost song, so it's basically kind of 8.5 songs. I would have to say, like, it would be 8.5 songs out of 17, or 8.5 songs out of 18 that I wound up liking. So Rax is a hit. If you're looking for it, you just don't want to download the YC mixtape and you just want to get it here, that is a hit. I will say that. That just kind of happens to be a thing. But some of the songs I didn't enjoy. It kind of starts to lag at the end. Like songs like Stand and For My People have some pretty bad beats and just not real interesting approaches in how they did things. And Much More tries to pull off like a soulful type vibe, and I feel like Lil Wayne doing that stuff on mixtapes was just more enthusiastic and kind of at least interesting production wise. I mean, I like that Future was attempting to do some soulful stuff, but the attempt behind it was just not quite solid enough. And like some of these Zaytoven beats could have been better. Like there's some moments in here that I kind of feel like Future was kind of finding groundwork, which is just kind of, I feel like it was just kind of sketchy trying to see some of these songs. Like Future definitely had the stepping out moments, but in terms of doing like the Gucci Mane Zaytoven type beats where he just kind of makes like trap in the hood type beats and kind of just stunting and posted up type stuff, Future's not quite as convincing in terms of hit wise as far as being able to do that. And that's kind of what Yeah Yeah with 2 Chains is like, and like On to Us and some of those. They just kind of, I feel like trying to take the Gucci Mane approach just didn't quite work as well for Future. And there's just, it's kind of more, there's more kind of jargon on here than I would have liked there to have been. I feel like I definitely, like, once again I'm gonna have to reiterate that I definitely feel like Future had like the stepping out and make it rain type songs, throw them bands type songs. Definitely he has that perfected to a T. And even on like a free mixtape, and this is probably like his first, second, or third mixtape. So this is like his breakout year was 2011. To hit it on the head that immediately is pretty awesome. But I kind of feel like for the most part, Future was kind of lacking other kind of variety in terms of hits that he could do. I mean, the nightclub, strip club hits are definitely there, but there's just not enough. The only other thing I think that came close as far as an interesting policy for Future was just songs like Dirty Sprite, where he talked about completely getting fucked up. And that's eventually what Future became immersed in. I mean, he could do those strip club kind of songs, but he was pretty good at the druggy songs too. But, for an album that's called Dirty Sprite, there's not actually very many songs about getting fucked up, which is kind of disappointing. There should have been a couple more. Definitely talked about codeine a little bit more and that type of stuff, but it really just does not really do that. So, yeah, 8.5 out of 18. I'm gonna go ahead and give this mixtape a 5.25 out of 10. I feel like it definitely has some gems on here, but there's nothing like exuberantly immediate that's just like you have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to download it or something like that. And I just would have to say it's got some good nightclub type hits, and definitely an alternative if you don't want to plock down $17 on like a DJ Khaled album or a newer Future album or something like that. But they're just not immediate, and that's just kind of the concept. I feel like the closest ones to that would be Rax, Pop Them Bands, and Old Hundreds with Twista, and that's kind of the concept there. But for the most part, this is lacking in terms of like crossover potential. So that's kind of the thing. The social score I will give like a 6.75 though, because it does have many kind of stepping out moments, and Future realizes that he's good at it. So that's definitely a good thing that he didn't just go trite on it and decide not to do it and kind of be fickle. But it's just kind of the concept. There's just not much else to get excited about beyond that. So I would say that. And in terms of the Future, when talking about Future dropped a project called it was like I Never Really Liked You or something like that just came out in early 2022. So he should be back at some point. It'd be cool to get another mixtape, but that's just some of the stuff that's been going on there. So pretty solid release, definitely worth checking out, but just you have to take the situations with it.